This is going to be movie number 4. As you see, we have finished on movie number 3. We finished the gradient mesh for the actual left arm, which I renamed from right arm. And what I want to do to this, let me move the mic a little closer. What I want to do to this is to lock up the actual fill that we had in the arm, if you can look over here and see in the layer palette. And I'm going to show for the moment the tracing layer, and I'm going to dim the tracing layer a little bit more, okay, just so we can get it to be a little bit more dimmed on screen, just so we can barely see it. Now, you recall I asked you to take the original path that you ever draw for any shape and to duplicate it, so you have a second path. Now, what I would like to do is to show you what I'm going to do with it, and I want you to understand that the development of a character line means that you look at the line that you have, and if you look over here to the right, you can tell that the line gets lighter and darker in areas, plus it gets thicker and thinner. And what we're going to do is we're going to take what is a single path and convert it using the scale, using the stroke, to a rather thick stroke. Because what I can do from this stroke, if I turn the line off now, is look and see that maybe that's a little too thick. Let me go to 1.5 points. What we're going to do is, it'd be help if I selected something now, wouldn't it? Let's go to 1.5 points. And what I'm going to do is to take this and duplicate it again in case I destroy it. So I'm going to duplicate it. It's going to be my safe copy. I might as well call it safe line. Possibly I'm a little paranoid there, but why not? I don't want to ruin an original. So I'm going to lock it and hide it and click back up to my regular line. Now, you cannot, and you'll understand at the end of this, you cannot make what I'm going to make from a closed path. If something that you need is a completely surrounded path, say around the round nose of Stitch or something, you have to cut the path in a small area before you do what I'm about to do. And let me make a point. Let me do it and then have you actually see what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this path and hit the C key. I know I do not need for the arm, if I move over to here or I click the clicky copy on, I don't need the path for the arm beyond where it goes into the cuff or beyond where it goes into the guitar. So let me turn off clicky copy and take the C key and cut it right on that point. Don't have to cut it on that point, but I'll cut it just a little higher right there and just a little higher than that. Take the direct select tool and click on this path and hit delete twice. Because the points were open, you have to hit delete twice. On here, let me take the C key and click right there and click right above the guitar there, and with this part selected, 2 deletes, 1, 2, we'll take that away. Now, what was one, if you look over here in the layer palette, what was one line turns into 2 lines. And yes, they are still paths. They are still single paths. So what I'm going to do is to outline this stroke. And I'm going to go have it selected. Notice how I either can shift click on both of these, or I can marquee the entire thing, okay, just to get both paths. I'm going to go to Object, Path, I'll hold that on screen, Outline Stroke. Now please watch over in the tool box there in the tool palette how what was a stroke over here turns into a fill. Now obviously I don't want red, but I am going to make this a gradient, and before I do that, notice that I can still click and turn it into wireframe to see through to where the stroke is. Now look over here and we'll make the stroke thick and thin, and here's a rule. Never move an outside line to the inside, always move an inside line to the outside. So I'm going to get as close to this as I can on screen and still keep it within reason of editing, and I'm going to move this over to thin down this particular stroke right here to keep it like it is in the copy over here and the small color copy. And I'm going to let the bottom get a little thicker. Look over here where I'm circling right there on the bottom, right over here where you can see that this goes from a thick stroke to a thin stroke. So let's do that. Let's take this one right here and make it go from a thin side to a thick side, and we'll even thicken it up even a little bit more and retract the handlebar like this. And now you can see how I indeed have possibly too thick, but I'm going to keep it the way it's supposed to be. Let's take both of the inside ones here and shift click them and just move them over a skosh bit, and now you can see how I need to take this one over and let's make it go thinner. So I indeed have custom fit that. If you look over here, you can tell that I have eliminated the little tiny part. Notice how I don't care about that. We're going to fix that in a moment, but I'm going to click on the inside and thin this down a little bit. In fact, I probably can take the pen tool and eliminate some of these. Look how I can click on that one, eliminate it, take this one down to where that one was, just so I do a little housekeeping or house cleaning on that. I don't need all of those points in there, but I would like to take both of these to the inside just a little bit to thin this down. So I just use the shift key and I clicked on both of those. Alright, for the purpose of this demonstration, you can see that I have custom fit the line. So what am I going to do? I am going to command click on this and turn it back into artwork, not wireframe. Let's do the top. Let's do this line right here first, and perhaps I'm a little too thick or thin here, but that can be changed later. It's not a big deal. I'm going to pull the gradient palette right here so that you understand that I'm using the gradient palette in conjunction with the color palette. Alright, now what I want to do is to take this and click this selection here and click it to a gradient. Now I'm going to cascade the gradient. Look, if I go in this direction, it'll cascade the gradient from the left hand side, hit the G key, and go from the left hand side to the right hand side, just like this, a little bit more like this, no, like that, so that the darkness goes in this direction and gets lighter as it works its way down. So let's see how I do, okay? In other words, if I start here, it's the white square. So if I click the white square here, you can see now how the color palette is using the white square. I'm going to go I key, shift key, and grab that value over here, and now you can see how that value is turned into right there. Let's click the dark square over here, and because I cascaded the G key from here to here, I'm now talking about the values that are up in the arm over here or up in here. So let's now grab that value, and indeed if you look at the gradient palette, I have a gradient going from light brown or a lighter brown to a darker brown, which I will save over here in the stroke palette. Let me hit Command S to save the file. I'm going to lighten up on this tone just a little bit, so I'm going to click back to this one right there, which is on the left hand side, and let's go try to hold the shift key and grab a little bit lighter value, which I did very nicely, and now this one's a little different than the one that was a minute ago, so I'm going to save it. Now Command S to save the file. If I turn on, it's a little premature, but if I turn on the fill, you can see how now that's looking more like the item that I need to have here, and it's rather nicely done. So let's take this and turn off the fill so I can get to this one. Let's take this one and go click the gradient again and leave the gradient in a direction of this. Now that what this means is, remember, the start of your grab on the G key to the end of your grab is the left hand side to the right hand side. So let's hit Command S to save the file again. Now what I would like to show is how to fix this little thing in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is take the P key, get very close to this, and just place in a stroke about that long. Alright? Remove the fill aspect of it, click the stroke to come to the front, and make it any color. For now I'll make it red so you can see what I'm going to do. I am going to go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke, and now we camouflage it in there. So I take this point and I run it right up here. I take this point and I run it so it's about the same thickness. I now take this one and I skinny it down, and I take this one and I pull it out, and now I have a custom fit line that if I go I key, shift key, and grab the color right above it, that was silly, if I bring the fill to the front and fill it up with that value, you shouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two of them. If you can, you're just going to have to lighten up a little bit just so it camouflages a little better. Now you can see how you and I both know that this little piece here is the add-on line, which is how character lines are done. towards any inside shape, and Bugs has many. Look on the tail here. If I click the clicky copy, look at how you can see an add-on line here, which you worry about later. There are many of the add-on lines on this thing, but I don't really want to take the whole time to find it. There's an add-on line here on his arm, or his hand, I'm sorry. There's an add-on line, many on his face. Look, there's one here on this side of his mouth. There's one here on that side of his mouth. There's one here underneath his mouth. So let's go back to the part that we were working on, turn off the clicky copy, and now that is how character lines are done. Let me turn on the fill, and you can see exactly how that character line makes the whole arm stand out. Obviously now I need to go in and adjust the gradient. It doesn't make sense. Look at the clicky copy, how the character line, you don't see the darkness runs right into the character line. So rather than adjust, since I have this already in the right place, I probably could adjust this just a little bit up and just a little bit up. But what I should go do is leave it selected like I have, go into the layer palette, lock up the character line, unlock the fill and open it up, go into safe number 2, which is the mesh. Okay, I have a little boo-boo right there. Let me unlock this, and now that I see that, you know that I won't be able to sleep tonight unless I fix that up totally, which is there. Okay, let's lock that back up. The reason the mesh selected is because I had the silly thing unlocked, but that's okay because I really have to move a couple lines on it. So what I'm going to do is go to deselect all, select with the direct select tool anywhere in here. What I have to do now is just custom fit this line just a little bit. So let's pull this down. Let's click on this one to pull it down. Let's wait a moment. I'm going to actually pull these down just a little bit just to get them to the right location. So now look at how I've pulled that one right down to here, right to the other side of that. Now let's make this go back up. Okay, that's good. Let's make this come down back up a little bit here, and let's force this one right next to it. So the line, actually the darkness comes right into it. Let's pull this down just a little bit to soothe out some of the geometry here. I would be amiss if I didn't go in and fix the geometry. For this demonstration, I don't think it's totally necessary, although you can see that I really can't help myself. Okay, so I really should pull this one down so that I get this nice feel. This one could move over to the right and down a little bit. Let's click away from this now and see if that visually makes sense. I'm real close on it. Let's click a little bit more and pull this one down a little bit. It really bothers me that these aren't pulled down, so I'm going to pull them down just a little bit more just to form the geometry a little better. Obviously I could probably go on with this one, but now let's pull this down a little bit more, click away from it, and now I have that exactly where I want that. That's fine. There's a little bump in the line right there. If I unlock it and lock up the fill here, I can just kind of custom fit this a little bit better than what I had. Let's pull this down just a little bit like this so that I can get it to be on a better tangent. And now you can see how I still have a bad tangent, although I'm being very, very terribly, I guess you could call me anal about it, but that's good. I'm happy with that character line. It's not bad. It's working. It looks almost like that character line, which is the whole trick of the whole thing. So those are character lines, and the next guide number 5 is going to go through and do a few more on theories on the gradient mesh, and I'll tell you what we're going to do when we get there. Thank you.